Hey y'all, it's me, CheesyPaninie, and today we're gonna make trees! What? Another one of those Terraria YouTubers making a tree video? Yeah, totally original, but hey, you never know. My trees could be different, you know? So the first tree I'm gonna make is an aspen tree. It's actually one of my favorite trees because it's very bright and the colors are not like your regular trees. And this one is actually very simple to make. However, if you want to copy how I make the tree exactly the way I do it, you're gonna need to have the all the walls mod to get the specific wall for this, which is hollow wall 1. First, I take some wooden fence and paint it white for the trunk. Then, I place some grass walls painted yellow. I prefer to use this rather than living leaf walls for this build because it's a lot lighter. Next, I place some mahogany leaf blocks painted yellow. I prefer these blocks over regular leaf blocks because if you compare them, the lines of these ones aren't as dark or bold. I like to place a few at the top, then put a few more around the place randomly. The way to place them is to make it as random as you can, but make sure that some of these blocks have tree spaces above them so you can place your purple and green strange plants, which you also have to paint yellow. It's what gives the tree a little bit of highlight and make it look a little more natural. Then I put some hollow wall 1 in certain areas to just make the background a little more random. And the thing I like about hollow wall 1 is that they look kinda like leaves. What I don't like about them too much is that when you place them, they're kind of square, so you have to place them strategically. And you know how aspen trees have these black lines? Well, for that I chose brass shelves because they're the thinnest platform around, and they make for some pretty interesting detail, and it blends even more with the tree after you actuate it. And now we have ourselves an aspen tree. The second tree I'm making is a pine tree, and I know you can already make them using pine tree blocks, but I want to show you guys a different way of making them. And this is one tree where you don't need any mods at all. First, I place rich mahogany fence painted brown to make the trunk. You can do it as tall or as short as you like. Now for my version of the pine tree, we do need to use pine tree blocks, but we only need one at the very top. This is because it has the pointy thing at the top, and I can't really do that with the other leaf blocks. So the way I like to do this is make something like a leaf kebab. I put a 3x3 leaf block for the first layer. Then for the second layer, I have to use a mahogany leaf block because if I use another leaf block, they're just gonna merge together, and I really want this small gap in between them. And if I use a leaf block and hammer it, the gap is a little too big. When I use mahogany leaf blocks though, they just naturally separate. So anyways, you do a third layer with leaf blocks and you continue until you're happy with the length of your pine tree. You can actually increase the height if you prefer, but since I'm just making one with 4 layers, I prefer to make the height even. Next, we're gonna be adding a few more blocks by the sides. For the first layer, I usually just put 2 extra ones. Then for the next few layers, I usually add a block or 2 extra. And the result will look something like this. But bear in mind that you don't have to copy the exact number of blocks I put in this tree. You can deviate from it and experiment on what feels better for you. I mean, with me, every time I make a pine tree, they tend to come out differently because I'd either add more blocks than before, put less blocks, but that's okay since trees are not really meant to look exactly the same anyway. So once you're done placing blocks, it's time to shape them. Now, most pine trees I see tend to have leaves that point upward, so that's what I'll be shaping these to. For the lower end of each layer, I would hammer them in different ways just so they don't look so flat and look a little bit different from each other. After you're done with shaping the blocks, take some living leaf walls and just line the edges of the leaf blocks and add depth to it. And there you have it, a custom pine tree. For our third tree, we have the weeping willow. Now this tree is actually something that Chaos requested that I do, and for good reason. It's one of the most interesting trees, and I don't think that many people make this tree in Terraria. Whenever I see them, I keep thinking of trees with wigs. The first thing I did to construct this tree was to make the basic shape of the trunk, which was curved and droopy. And for this, I used living mahogany wood. It's actually built like these that makes the cheat sheet mod extra handy because you can just copy one block and draw the curve with your mouse. It's even handier if you have a pen tablet or a display tablet. And if you made a mistake or want to move large chunks of blocks, you can just copy it with the eyedropper tool and adjust accordingly. After I've made the curve and the roots, I began putting some branches and covering a side of the tree with living wood to add a little block variety to the body of the tree. Having the trees as living wood is also important to this build because I will be using living leaf blocks for the leaves of the tree, and they won't merge with living mahogany wood. I've also done a bit of sloping with the branches to make them look a little thinner and a little more natural. And I've also put a little bit of living wood at the bottom part of the roots so that it would blend with the dirt blocks. Willow trees' bark are usually in this dark gray-brown hue, and since we can't really get that kind of hue, I settled with gray paint, which I think kind of complements its sort of melancholic vibe. Next up are the leaves with vines. Now this is something you can only really do with a cheat sheet mod or T-edit. You need to grab a vine using the eyedropper tool, but take note that you have to copy it from the very root of the vine in order for it to attach successfully on leaf blocks. You can actually use dirt blocks with grass here, but if you do and you place them by the living wood, it will merge and will show the dirt. You can paint this with deep lime paint, but I don't really like the look of it too much and I still prefer the leaf blocks. I paint the leaf blocks and the vines with lime paint and copy them to make it easier to place them around my tree. So the trick with the leaves is to place them by the ends of the branches and make these little bumps with vines at the bottom. And you can slope the leaves a bit just to make it a little more irregular and curvy. Now I'm trying to make the vines under the branches look like they're connected to the vines above it. And to make this, I need to slope the leaf blocks they're connected to into a shape that doesn't look like it's connected to the living wood. There's still a bit of a gap, and to remedy that, we are gonna need mushroom walls painted lime. I really like these walls for this because they have strips which line perfectly well with the vines. I leave a few gaps in between the vines so that some light still passes through and it's not too dark. Unfortunately, these walls are square, and while the All the Walls mod has a circular version of the mushroom walls, you're still gonna need walls that are irregular for the edges, and for this I use good old living leaf walls. A good way to prevent the leaves from looking too solid is to make sure some vines are longer than the walls. So I continue this process with all the other branches and I end up with this, my version of a weeping willow. For the final tree, we've got the dragon's blood tree. Now, I picked this tree because it's pretty unique. It's a tree found in Yemen, and the reason why it's called that way is because it produces red resin. So when you cut it, it looks like it's bleeding, which is kind of freaky if you think about it. I mean, imagine the look on the face of the first guy to ever try cutting it. The shape of the tree itself is rather interesting. It's kind of like a really big mushroom tree. So anyways, I started off with making the basic shape of the tree, planning out the form and all that. I made a thick trunk that widens by the top and finish it off with a curved outline for the leaves. I made the trunk with living wood for now and made the branches into living mahogany wood for extra texture. Now, dragon's blood tree tends to have branches that are very close to each other. So my goal is to make as many as I can, and there are a few gaps in between these branches I've made. But I can't really add more living mahogany blocks because it will just merge together. So I take some bone platforms and use that for extra branches. And I picked out this particular platform because their ends tend to curve in a way that other platforms don't. And I wanted to make things a little easier for me, and I guess I like the look of it being somewhat symmetrical when it comes to the branches, so I used the cheat sheet mod tool to copy, then flip horizontal and paste it on the other side. However, if you do this, the sloping doesn't really register the opposite way, so you have to hammer them again one by one. It's actually because of this that I highly advise that you don't put walls yet, because when you do the sloping, there's a tendency to break the walls. After I've done shaping it and painting it, I place some unique cave wall 2 behind these branches because I feel like the texture looks like tiny branches and kind of complements the build. You can get the wall from the All the Walls mod, or if you're really diligent, you can look around the map for it and copy it using the cheat sheet mod. But I don't really recommend that unless you're really good at finding specific walls in the map. Okay, since the branches are done, let's move on to my favorite part of the build, the leaves. Now what I like to do with this is I turn on my paint sprayer so I don't have to worry about painting it later, and make little clumps of leaf blocks and mahogany leaf blocks, then put blueberries on top of them, giving the tree a little more detail. For the background, I put in bits of crimson grass wall, and some living leaf walls, all painted green. The reason why I picked out those specific walls is because crimson grass is the lightest grass wall among them all, and grass wall is like the middle ground, with living leaf walls being the darkest wall among the three. As for placement, what I did was kind of put the lighter walls next to where the light hits the other blocks, and put the darkest wall where the shadows are. And I also put a bit of living leaf walls by the edge underneath the leaves to give it depth. I do this for the rest of the leaves, and I end up with this. It actually looks pretty good as it is, but if you really want to make it look close to the original, the trunk has to be shaped a little bit thinner and mixed with some living mahogany blocks in between. And there! Now, Dragon's Blood tree's bark is actually white, but the shadow kind of makes it look brown. So it really depends on you if you prefer to keep it brown or make it white like how it really is in real life. And that's how you make a Dragon's Blood tree. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you liked what you saw, subscribe if you want more, and comment down below what other stuff I could try making in Terraria. I actually have a few more tree designs that I want to share with you all, but that's all I'm showing for now, so stay tuned for the next ones. And for the fellow builders out there who have a hard time figuring out what blocks to use for certain builds, check out my online Terraria palette, which shows you the list of blocks ordered by type and by look, with some tooltips and a color and variety palette. It's not yet complete though, but I'm doing my best to finish it up. The link is in the description. And I guess I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support, for just checking in on my channel every now and then and still watching, despite me being gone so many times during the past 3 years, I think. Yeah, it's been a long time. Oh, and before I forget, I'd like to say Happy Valentine's Day to my favorite tree, Chaos. I hope you like this sketch of us. I didn't get enough time to render it, but yeah, I hope you like it. Anyways, that's it for now. I'm just gonna go do my thing and you guys do your thing, and I'll see you guys later. Take it easy. Stay cheesy.